Hi, everyone. I want to thank you for being here. I'm really honored to be starting this series with today's conversation. This conversation is part of a series documenting what families are experiencing inside the Ventura County probate system, stories that are rarely heard publicly. So, before we begin, I want to confirm that you are aware that this interview is being recorded and may be shared publicly, which it will be. And are you okay with that?
Yes, ma'am, I
Yeah.
am.
All right, thank you. So today I'm speaking with someone whose story shouldn't exist, but it does. Can you introduce yourself and who your loved one is or was?
Okay. My name is Antonia Scalise. Most people call me Tony. And I have a brother, Micah, and my mother is Beatrice Mary Scalise, and she passed away in October of 2024. And unfortunately got into a contract that isn't being honored.
Understood. Okay. So when you describe that contract, your mother, did she had a will?
We had a will and a trust.
And so can you explain to me and to us what happened? Like who are the key players that came into this event that somehow the trust got altered from what her wishes were?
So uh, apparently she had fallen a few times, ended up in the hospital with a traumatic brain injury and they had to call an ambulance. And um, when they transported her to the hospital, they gave her a diagnosis of uh, cancer and congestive heart failure. And her choices were to either return home to her house, where my brother was already there because he had gotten there when she went to the hospital, and or she would have to go to a facility, and she decided that she was going to go home and be with my brother, at which point hospice was coming in. And as per usual, when hospice starts, it's every other day, and in between you help them eat and drink and all of that stuff. And so my brother was doing that, but then Probate Services Incorporated decided that he wasn't doing a good enough job of it, and that they needed to send in their own caretaker from Townsgate Home Health. And um, my mother didn't like having them there. She was more comfortable just having her son there. And I wasn't there yet, but I was in touch with her, and I was telling her when I was going to get there because I'd had some surgery set up. So on October 14th, I called her and talked to her, and she could still talk to me and hear me, even though she was in her hospital bed. And I said, Mom, if you can talk, you need to call Angelique Friend and her business, Probate Services, and ask them to provide Micah and I with the documentation we need moving forward for your funeral and burial, because she'd always been very talkative about that. So when my mother reached out and left that message on October 14th, she never received a call back. There's never any response. And on October 16th, the caregiver that she had put in the house and another woman named Rebecca McDonald showed up when my brother went to drive through to get something to eat, and took our mother out of the house in a wheelchair without permission. They didn't, the fiduciary trustee does not have the rights to make those type of decisions. My brother was in charge of that, hence why they waited until he left to kidnap her. Um, she was gone for almost 3 hours. My brother called the Moore Park Police Department, and they stayed there and were waiting with him. And she eventually returned after I said approximately 2.5 to 3 hours. and she didn't know where she had gone. She was very confused. He said, where it happened? And she said, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know. And she said, what happened? And he said, they kidnapped you. And she said, I think they did. And that was her last words, because by that next morning, she was no longer able to eat, speak, drink, all of the things she had been doing up until that point.
Wow. Well,
And
go ahead. Sorry.
and that's when everything changed.
And I think this is really interesting because you yourself are a hospice nurse. Is that correct?
That is right.
Wow.
That
So,
is right. And when I before I figured out that I could not trust these people as far as I could see them, um, I informed them that I was a hospice nurse and that I needed to get people to work for me, because you can't just leave your spot open when you work in a hospice and memory care facilities. So they became aware of my job, and they also knew that I knew the laws and rules connected to hospice care. So because they were trying to discourage me from coming for whatever reason. I can't surmise, but I did end up making it there. But at which point, when I saw her the Monday after they had done that, her eyes, there was no brain activity. I don't think she could even see me by the time I got there. And then I asked for their caretaker to leave, because I'm there and I can take care of my 80-pound mother that is basically laying there brain dead at this point, and they would not take their caregiver out.
mhm.
She didn't leave until after they picked up my mother's body, and she died 1 week after they took her out of the house.
Okay, a couple questions. Which hospice company was this?
Her hospice was through Kaiser Permanente.
Okay, got it. And
They absolutely had no idea about why she had been removed, because that was definitely someone that was contacted when we couldn't find her. And they did not, that was completely separate from hospice. They did not say that heart doctor needed to see her.
wow. Do you by any chance remember the name of the cardiologist?
No, they never told us that, but they did supposedly tell the Moorpark Police Department that talked to them. But what's strange about that is it said she was in congestive heart failure, but this doctor said that her heart was working just fine, which seemed a little bit odd to me, because, mind you, I don't think that Angelique had possession of the medical paperwork, because my brother was a medical POA going forward. So he had that paperwork. I don't think that she had that. So she didn't know that congestive heart failure. So
Wow.
I don't really think they took her to a doctor, honestly, because why was she non responsive 8 hours afterwards? I mean, it completely changed everything. So,
Wow. Wow. So my goodness. Okay. So I'm kind of lost for words for a moment. So the moment that changed everything essentially would be when Angelique, Friend, and Townsgate stepped into the picture. So if I understand correctly, they took control. They didn't have the authority to do so. You and your brother were taking care of your mom. You were taking care of her best interests, and and they just took over.
yeah, it seemed to me like they were acting as if they had a conservatorship or a guardianship or power of attorney or anything like that. But when I questioned them about that, because yet again, I haven't received any documentation telling me what my mom is expecting from here on in, what and I had seen no paperwork, so I'm taking their word for everything. And of course, they didn't volunteer that this home health woman, Elvira, came from their home, Townsgate Home Health. When I tried to reach them from their website, it rang to a law office, which was right around the corner from Miss Friend's husband.
Was it
And
the
I thought
law?
that was very odd.
Which law office was that?
Dave Esquibias, he's a probate trust attorney, and I assume that's who gives her advice on how to grift people.
Were were you made aware that that her husband was her attorney as well?
Well, yes, because when I was trying to get them to get the caretaker out,
Mm-hmm.
and Antonia wasn't having any luck with me,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think I physically should have removed this caretaker because she was a 62-year-old woman like me. She was no better qualified to be doing the care.
We had a little technical difficulty, so we're jumping back in right now, picking up where we left off, which was about David Esquibius and how he fit into the picture with Townsgate and his wife Angelique Friend. So rolling right back into, let's just jump right into it. What is happening right now? You informed me before this interview, which we already had lined up, that you received a letter today about your mom's home being sold. Can you
Yeah.
walk us through what that says?
So that is saying that basically they're giving us 5 days to answer as to why we're objecting to the sale of the house. The main reason we're objecting is that they have not fulfilled any other part of the trust or the will by staying in touch with us as a fiduciary trustee. She's supposed to be transparent, communicating with us, telling us what's in the trust account, telling us what was in the valuables and the jewelry, which she informed me are gone. Um, and there's no money in the trust account. And all that she thinks that she's going to put into this is the house. And why would I trust them to do that when they haven't given me anything else that they have were supposed to have given me?
So
Our
you
jewelry gone, heirlooms that my grandmother made, rosaries gone, um, opal diamond rings, and she just flippantly said they were gone. And now they're trying to take the house in the same way. And why wouldn't I trust? Why would I trust to have them sell the house when they haven't kept up any by have not kept up any part of their contract?
so,
And there was no guardianship and there was no conservatorship. She's only a fiduciary trustee.
so the county stepped in, they took over, took over your mom, but they kidnapped her because that's what this is being referred to as within the entire community that is dealing with the same circumstance.
An
And
87-year old hospice patient against their will with no permission.
and then taking over, exploiting their trust, and now have taken control without anyone's permission. And now, not that they ever legally had the ability or capacity to change anything, and nobody could say that a woman of her age was in the right place to make a decision if they were to change the will at the last moment. So now you're looking at this fiduciary situation, and if I understand correctly, who was never approved of, you're not being given any final accounting, anything about the estate, and they've taken control over the home that was to be heired to you and your family and all of the
And
belongings. Is this correct?
yes,
Wow.
yes. And the day after my mother died, they asked us to come to the office. So we assumed that was going to be to show us the paperwork and what we're supposed to do regarding the future plans of our now dead mother and her. And instead, what they did was present us with a piece of paper that Marcy Sue, who made that morning, that said that we were signing the house over for $500 each. So for $1,000, they would take the property. And obviously, when I read it, I said, "Well, we're not signing this." And my brother read it after I did, and he said, "Do you know what this says?" And she said, "Yeah, I know what it says. I just printed it up this morning." And all this time, Angelique is on vacation. That's why she was unreachable to my mother and unreachable except for the time she called me and tried to um, explain to me why the caretaker was there, which was not. Uh,
Oh, I,
there's no way my mother needed 5.5 weeks of 24/7 care. As a hospice nurse, I know what they need, and it's not that.
and she had your brother there with her.
And my brother, and we stayed there until the end. Although they kept trying to get us to leave, they kept trying to tell us how much Bee didn't like us and how she wanted to take us out of the will and da 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 da, trying to make us leave. And then they eventually forced us to leave the day after she passed away. But I didn't sign that paper. But I did write a Google review while my mother was still alive.
Oh,
I
I
did
will.
because
I,
because I knew something was going terribly awry.
I will look up
So
that review for sure. And so the nurse that was there when they provided a nurse that was there 24/7, that was through Townsgate.
yes, Elvira is the only name that I know of her.
Okay. And then we were getting to the letter that you received today from attorney Robert Baskin, correct? I'm looking
Correct.
at it right now. Okay. So this letter, if I'm looking at this paper correctly, shows it states that, well, it shows that it was mailed on March 31st. It's dated March 31st, and yet it's saying that you have 5 days to respond or the property will be sold. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes,
And
and
so
I got the mailbox today, April 6th.
April 6th. So you got it 1 day past. So you weren't actually even given adequate time to respond to this from attorney Robert Baskin. So this is the attorney representing Angelique, or how did Robert Baskin come into this?
Yes, he's Angelique's
Mhm.
cohort.
Got
Or
it. It's because it seems like there is this same network and pipeline going on that I'm coming across. So it's very interesting. Okay, so
yeah,
we will address that more. That is okay. Um, so I don't even need to ask if you feel like you've been given a fair opportunity to respond because I just noticed that that date that you received it 1 day past. Do you feel like this case is isolated, that this is just about you, or do you feel like this is something bigger going on?
well, it's definitely something bigger because they're too darn good at it for it to be a new thing. They know exactly what they're doing. They were consistently trying to get my brother and I to abandon my 87-year-old mother. I mean, who does that? Who does that?
Um,
She's their client. They've taken a lot of money from her. That's how much they respected her. And then also that she was cremated, which was part of her plan, but that was done without notifying me beforehand.
so you weren't privileged the opportunity to see her body before she passed, correct?
Oh, it was her body was in the house, and I knew that she was supposed to be cremated, but the Perez mortuary was telling me that Probate Services Inc. was supposed to be handling the cremation, the funeral, and the burial. But then they told me that that wasn't going to be happening until January, and I said, "Excuse me, no, that's not when that is nothing close to what my mother would have wanted. So I went ahead and I got her end of life stuff arranged. And for that, I had to hire an attorney, and Angelique ran out $3,000 worth of emails and text messages so that I could get my mother buried, which was already paid for.
And I find that really interesting because I keep coming across every victim to date that I've come across includes the Perez funeral home. So it's very interesting that you state that. So her body was cremated. Did you have a chance that you could do your own individual autopsy?
No, I didn't, because believe me, I was I as far as I knew, she was still sitting in the refrigerator, because technically either the trustee or Perez, one of them, should have been calling me. They called me when they got her body to the mortuary and said they got her body there safe. So why wouldn't they call me when a month has gone by and I think she's still sitting in the cooler or the freezer?
So
So
any evidence that would have been there for you to perform your own autopsy on your mom to try and understand how an otherwise woman who you had just seen and she was responsive then was kidnapped, brought back, disassociated, which makes no sense for you as a nurse that understands how hospice and everything works, and then all
not
the
only
evidence is gone.
I see how people pass, and something was different about that. Her eyes just weren't blinking for 5 days. That's not normal.
That
That's
is
not a process that I've seen.
No. And I take it very personal because what you're describing is very similar to what I'm going through with my own brother who's 49. And at first I thought that this was isolated, but I'm hearing the same patterns from multiple families, which is how this we've all become connected. So I guess going into a final question, when you hear that this might not be isolated, which is what you've conveyed, how does that change how you feel and what you see that happened to your family? How does that, how does all of this feel to you right now? Like,
What
where
it
does
what
this
it
put
feels
you?
like, it's a violation of emotional. It's a large emotional cost to this, and it's been going on for months and months and months on end. And I feel that people do that to wear you down and tire you out and just throw your hands up and say, I can't handle this anymore. And that's what they've been trying to do the whole time. That's literally what they've been trying to do the whole time, is just to get us to go away, go back to Utah, go home. Don't, we don't want you here. They said, we're going to send you family pictures. We're going to send them in the mail. I haven't even got so much as a piece of anything.
And and
And,
and how long has it been?
huh?
And will you remind us how long this has been going on? How many months or years?
She passed away in October 23rd of 2024. So it was October 14th that she asked for her stuff, and all hell broke loose from there on in.
So October, let's see, November, December, January, February, March, April. So that's like a year and a half, if I'm counting correctly. Am
Oh,
I
no, wait a minute. I'm sorry, 2025.
okay?
20, my dad was 2024. Yeah, scratch that. It
Oh,
was 2025. It was this past
October.
October. So now here we are in April.
Wow.
And I get my mother buried in December
My goodness.
without them. Without them.
Oh, and quick question. How were you notified of your mom's passing? Which I'm sorry, my condolences to you. This is horrible.
There when she passed.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
Oh, you were there?
yeah, we were there.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, we were both my brother and I and their caretaker and a couple of her church friends. So, and then her assistant Marcy Sue, who decided to guard her investment for 5.5 hours until hospice came and picked up her body, and
And
she started taking notes.
That's a name that seems to be scattered across the board with all the victims. So I've become very familiar with that name. I should look it up so I have a face to it. If there's something that you want to say to anyone, including our new judge in Department J6 Probate, what is it that you would like to say to him?
I would say that I would never want this to happen to anyone else ever, because it is such a sad time to be losing your parents, your family members, and to have somebody take advantage when you're just trying to get through every day and see some sliver of hope. To have somebody take that away and all you have is darkness and doubt is a horrible thing. And also to want to isolate people from the people that they should be with when they are leaving. She said my brother was camping out because it took 5.5 weeks. That was too long for her. Like that, like there was a time frame, and this is taking too long. So she said he was camping out by being there for 5.5 weeks, which I told her was totally normal. I see people do that, and most of the time, 8 out of 10 times, the family is there. Well, that's not called camping out.
Oh my gosh. Uh,
It's called
yes.
supporting a person that you loved.
But, and I did want that to be on closing, but you did touch something. Um, was there any defamation of character between you or your brother that Angelique or any of her colleagues or her husband or anybody portrayed of you? Any kind of slander, any kind of harsh bark or anything that you're
Yeah,
like, oh
well,
gosh, she said this and it was just, that was not right.
so asking me that, the one thing that stands out in my mind, because I'm protective of my younger brother, is that when he took that paper that they tried to have us sign the day after her death, signing off the property for $1,000, and he wadded it up and he threw it at her after Marcy Suhu, and she said to get out of our office. You are trespassed from here. And up, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes her very large husband, and he tells my brother, "I'm going to kill you."
Are you referring to David Esquibius?
But I, but no, it was Marcy Suhu's husband.
Oh
But when
my.
police for that, they said that was Camarillo Police Department. They said that my brother, a 55-year-old disabled veteran with Parkinson's, didn't run when he said he was going to kill him, so he wasn't really scared. And then the Camarillo Police Department told us to take the checks and go home.
Oh my. Wow.
And
So,
so I drove home 450 miles, which obviously was a lot of, it was dark by the time we were done messing with these people. And my brother had to drive another 300 miles past that. So the fact that we made it home in one piece is, I don't even know how.
I
Because
don't-
you know how many stuff at night and just, anyway, we made it home.
God bless you.
But for
Thank
it to
you.
happen, it needs to end. This is not okay. Like, it's not okay.
No,
I've been
no,
physically ill. I'm not recovering from a surgery. I have to have another surgery to fix the other surgery that I got because of the stress.
the
It's
stress.
it's
But
yeah.
I mean, stress will bring on, it will cause cancer. It will do so much to somebody and what it's doing with you financially, you and your brother. Just, I just, I, I'd like to say that I can't imagine what it's like to lose everything and to have your family member essentially kidnapped and isolated and abandoned and their estate being blown. And
Like, way isolated by just keeping it where we could never have a second alone
alone.
with her.
Hmm.
Not 1 second,
Yep.
even at past. It
Ah,
was so, it was weird. Just, I've never seen anything like it.
and I in no way want this to be about me, but they're doing the same thing to me with my brother. And it's been more than 7 months and more than 30 filings, and they just find a way to deny, deny, deny. And the emails that I've gotten include, but are not limited to, the fact that somebody is always in the room and you're not allowed to have your camera with you. And the list just goes on. And the nurses that they've hired need to be bedside with them no matter what around the clock. So I think this continues to follow a pattern. What matters right now at this moment is your story being our first story. Thank you for stepping forward. We are going to get this online right now tonight to timestamp it, and this will be uploaded to the judge so he starts to see what is really going on this inside circle. Because this is not just one story. And for anyone watching, this is exactly why these conversations matter. And you stepped forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Okay.
Good night.
Good night.